Uh-huh.
What's your favorite scary movie?
I don't know.
You have to have a favorite. What comes to mind?
You are listening to Scream with Ryan C. Showers, the podcast for Scream fans just like you. Join Ryan every week as he takes a deep dive into the horror film series that defined the 90s and redefined the genre. Scream with Ryan C. Showers is your source for scene and quote analysis, character dissections, and the latest news about upcoming installments of the Scary Movie franchise.
I hear you like horror movies, Kirby, but do you like them as much as him?
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Scream with Ryan C. Showers podcast, where the film critic meets the Scream fan twice a week, every Tuesday and Friday. I'm your host, Ryan C. Showers. Thank you for joining me for today's episode. Now, before I go any further, I need to thank the producers of Scream with Ryan C. Showers. They include Ashley Summers from the Squirrel and Spud Shop. She and I host a Scream game every Wednesday on Instagram, so please check that out. I also need to thank TJ Jones, who comes from the Box Office Buds podcast. He is responsible for all of the graphic design of Scream with Ryan C. Showers in terms of new episode cards on social media promotion. So thank you so much to TJ for all he does. I also need to thank contributors Mark Karim, Mark Vieira, and Joey Velisi. Joey Velisi is the guy who writes the scripts for Scream with Ryan C. Showers. Episode 112, we wrote a Scream 7 script, which I read out loud, about the end of the Carpenter sisters storyline. And then the sequel to that was called Screams. It was centered around the legacy of Gail Weathers. That's episode 155. And Joey is currently working on the final Scream, which this is a product that is going to examine the relationship, the marriage of Mark and Sidney. Unlike the real Scream 7, this will feature Mark Kincaid as Sidney's husband, and she won't have a teenage daughter. Both of her daughters will be young, so it'll be much different than the real Scream 7 we're going to get. But that is going to be coming to the podcast late summer, early fall, so please tune in for that. I need to thank everybody over at Patreon. Thank you to everybody who subscribes to the Patreon at any and every tier. I'm an independent entity, so any bit of support that comes into the Patreon goes back into the podcast. Joining the Patreon gets you ad-free and early access to every episode, as well as the opportunity to join the community of the show. We have group chats across social media. In particular, Instagram is really the hub of the podcast community. More importantly, joining the Patreon is the vessel in which you would use to come onto the podcast, either in a one-on-one situation with me or a small panel. In addition, there's a guaranteed invite every month to a big group Zoom recording about a Scream topic. An exciting feature of the podcast is the audio commentary episodes. Every Scream fan knows what it was like listening to Wes Craven do the audio commentaries for the original trilogy and Scream 4, with Marianne Maddalena and Kevin Williamson and Patrick Lussier. And what I'm trying to do for my Patreon subscribers is I am going to be performing an audio commentary of a Scream or a Scream-related movie, one per month, every month. And my goal is to try to approach these as I'm doing deep analytical analysis about the characters, about the themes, about just general reaction. So it's something that I'm really proud of and I hope continues to be a cherished part of the podcast. So the commentary is available as a normal podcast episode for anybody to listen to like they would any other podcast, but it will also be available as a video watch along. So everybody, please go over to Patreon, subscribe to Scream with RCS. I would be eternally grateful. So I need to go through and thank everybody over at Patreon who is subscribed as a stab investor or a daddy/mama Ghostface. So the daddy/mama Ghostface of the Patreon are Carrie Tenney, Brett Janovich, Corey Wilson, and Stevie Shears. The stab investors include Allie, Mark Karim, Tamika Jones, David D., Garrison Nichols, Gustavo Mora, Jess Mariano, Joey Nobarini, aka The Vault, Josh Calamari, Josh Carr, Scream Queens podcast, both Josh and Justine, The Horror Project podcast, Justin Weir, Kevin Abner, Mark Vieira, PWO5, aka Philip Douglas, Quentin Harrison, and Sam Levy. Hello, everybody, and welcome to this week's episode of Scream with Ryan C. Showers. I'm your host, Ryan C. Showers, and guess what today is? Today is Tuesday, August 5th. Welcome, everyone. Guess what else happened on August 5th a long time ago, way back in the 90s? Halloween H20 was released on August 5th, 1998. First of all, what the hell were they thinking releasing a Halloween movie in August? But at the same time, I love it because August is partly H20 month. I love that. And H20 is my favorite Halloween sequel for sure. My favorite Halloween film. I know that's controversial. Don't care. Love the original. I have some very exciting news. On Friday, I'm going to be releasing an audio commentary of Halloween H20. It is one of my favorite movies of all time. Like after, the four Wes Craven Scream movies, it's the original Halloween and Halloween H2O. So everybody, subscribe to the Patreon and come and listen to my audio commentary of Halloween H2O on Friday. Oh, I'm so excited to record it. The other commentaries, I mean, I know what you did last summer was pretty easy. It's one of my favorites. I know that movie really well. But H2O is going to be like the first time I'm like, ooh, I know this. I'm good. I can do this in my sleep. Everybody tune in on Friday for that. Then on the following Tuesday, so 1 week from today, there's going to be a Hallow Scream Q&A where I made speed round questions for Halloween in the same way that I have for Scream. I made them for Halloween. And then I have some where we cross Scream and Halloween, which is really fun. I have my friend Matt Emmert from the Happy Horror Time podcast doing it with me, and it is a really great episode. So this really is a Halloween month in a way, and specifically Halloween H2O. Long introduction, everybody, but please welcome first Amar Karim. Hey, Amar.
Hey Ryan, how's it going? How you doing?
Good. How about you?
Yeah, not too bad. I had a spring in my step because this topic and the guest that you're about to introduce, he's got me excited. So,
well, my other guest always has me excited. But before I introduce him, do you remember that time I almost ended our friendship because you, for some reason, you said you were on a kick like in the fall of 23. You said that you thought Halloween H2O was more entertaining than Scream 3. And I got so bent out of shape. I mean, I was courting you. I was like trying to convince you otherwise. And these are two of like literally Scream 3 and Halloween H2O, my favorite things of all time. And Amar said, oh, H2O is better. And I was just like, so.
No, I remember the time very, very well. You never let me forget it. But, they're both very, very good in their own ways. And for me, they're both 10 out of 10. So they're neck and neck.
Well, Thankfully, I did not throw you overboard the ship of Scream with Ryan C. Showers.
Exactly.
Yet. We'll see after tonight. And Anthony DePuzzo from the Never Split Up podcast. Hey, Anthony.
How's it going? I'm so excited to be recording with both of you. Nice reunion.
I know it's a nice reunion. We did the rating episodes last year for Scream 4 and 5, and it was a really fun time. So I'm really happy to... Oh, and Scream 2. I'm talking to Mr. Scream 2 here. I'm sorry. My God. I buried the lead. Who cares about Scream 5 when we have Scream 2 to talk about? Yeah, this was fun. So I'm happy to bring Anthony and Amar back together. Actually, this episode has been in the works since like May, so I'm very excited to have these two guys here. But Anthony, you've been on quite a bit recently. Been a great contributor to the podcast. After our emergency episode of I Know What You Did Last Summer,
oh no,
someone said, do you make Anthony agree with you everything that you say? And I say, no, Anthony just has excellent taste.
There we go.
Well, Anthony, why don't you tell everybody about your YouTube show?
Yeah, guys, so me and my buddy, we host a YouTube show and we talk about a different horror movie or a horror topic every week. Never Split Up podcast. Make sure you guys subscribe to us on YouTube and all socials. Yeah, we have a good time there.
And Amar, why don't you tell everybody where they can find our alternative podcast, which is What's the Tea with RuPaul and Michelle Visage. I'm just teasing.
Yeah.
Okay, guys. So before we get going, this is a really cool topic. Okay, so I was inspired because, even though he's not credited, Kevin Williamson, he wrote Halloween H2O, or he wrote at least a big part of it. And you can feel it in the way that the characters talk, in the emotion, the character development. There is Kevin Williamson all over this movie, even just from a distance. But when you get up close and personal, you can really see his imprint on it. And honestly, he should have had a writing credit on it. I'm kind of frustrated that he didn't. Oh, well, it doesn't matter. But just to say that, okay? So Kevin Williamson, he is going to be the director of Scream 7 after writing half of the movies thus far. He kind of rewrote Scream 7 from what we know. He is going to have a huge part in the story there as well. But the interesting thing is Halloween H2O was the 7th Halloween movie. Scream 7, obviously, is the 7th Scream movie. And they both are about the returning to the original final girl and her story from the earlier films, where she is the main character, the main focus again. And specifically, it's going to be about her and her oldest child and that dynamic of the parent not really getting the child and vice versa, and it relating back to their trauma. So, of course, with Halloween H2O, it's with Laurie Strode and her son, John. And Scream 7 is going to be Sidney and her daughter, Tatum, both the same age. Very cool. I have outlined 20 different narrative points in Halloween H2O that I believe could happen in Scream 7. So basically what Amar and Anthony here are going to help me define are which of these moments could appear in Scream 7, which couldn't. So for instance, the thing that actually inspired me was I had this moment, there's this iconic shot of Laurie Strode and Michael Myers reuniting in Halloween H2O where she closes a door and he appears in the little window and they stare at each other. That could happen in Scream 7 with Sidney. And that's what inspired this whole podcast. So we're going to go through different moments of that in H2O and see what we think in terms of how much of H2O could we find in Scream 7? Will we see the following H2O moment in Scream 7? So that's the game we're going to play. But before that, I have a little opening fun thing for us. So I was watching Halloween H2O in preparation for this podcast, and it was apparent to me something that Halloween did right in its Blumhouse trilogy that perhaps Scream didn't do right. Well, you know, Neve Campbell and Jamie Lee Curtis, they each had 4 appearances, 4 movies as their respective final girl in their respective franchises before they came back for their reboots, their requels, whatever you want to call them. But the key difference I found whenever I'm watching H2O and thinking about it is, like, you know, Halloween 2018, Halloween Kills and Halloween Ends, they embrace Laurie in a different way than Scream embraced the trio. You know, she was the main character, the main focus of Halloween 2018. She was the co-lead main character of Halloween Ends. She wasn't for Halloween Kills, but she was still important. And that was just very different from what happened with Sidney and Scream. So, you know, I think that, like, the reason why Halloween is seen as such a successful outing for the horror genre, for slashers, for requels, is because they hugged close to Laurie Strode. They made Jamie Lee Curtis the star, the focal point, and that's just not what they did for Scream. And I just think it's so interesting why one would choose to do that whenever there was already a proven track record of, if you promote Jamie Lee Curtis and she really does get the final fight, she really does get to have this big beef, you know, within the story, how that led to successful results. And I'm just going to go a step further even. Like, some people say, oh, well, it's because older fans can't move on without these legacy characters. I disagree with that, because just take a look at Andi Matichak as Allison. I love Andi Matichak. I think she is such a phenomenal actress. She is, each of her performances in these 3 movies, they're adult, they're mature. And I just don't think with Allison, like, I don't see her as controversial in the same way that I see Sam Carpenter as controversial. So I think that, like, the way that the Blumhouse trilogy embraced Laurie and also gave us a character like Allison just goes to show that you can do this shit right in the modern age. It doesn't always have to be a sacrificing of the old for somebody younger and new that is not appealing to everybody. So, guys, what do you guys think about this?
I mean, I 100% agree with you. I think that Blumhouse and Universal realized that the secret ingredient to Halloween isn't just Michael Myers, it's Michael Myers and Laurie Strode. Whereas Scream, they were like, we're going to usher in a new, young, hot cast, and yeah, we'll throw Sidney in there because we got to have Sidney, but they didn't respect the character of Sidney, and I mean, I would say Neve Campbell as well, as where Blumhouse knew, like, Jamie Lee Curtis, she's fucking Halloween. Like, every successful Halloween is starring Jamie Lee Curtis, and like you said, they were able to do it while bringing in the younger crew too and respect them. And Allison was a very important co-lead, or I wouldn't say co-lead, but she was an important main player, but it was always going back to Laurie, which is what I think, in my opinion, Scream is even more so important to have Sidney front and center. And Halloween did that times 10 in the trilogy. Even Halloween Kills, like, she wasn't in it much, but her presence it always felt like it was always an end up Laurie Michael.
It's crazy to me to say this because she spends literally all of her time in Halloween Kills in a hospital bed. But it almost feels to me like Laurie in Halloween Kills is even more prominent and more intense, and she feels more, like, important to the story than even Sidney does in Scream 5 or Gail does in Scream 6. And that's really crazy to me, right?
It's unfortunately true, though. Like,
Yeah.
she drives the narrative in Kills where Sidney shows up because we need Sidney to show up at the end, shoot doors. And Gail, we have to have Gail to have a scene. I feel like, unfortunately, in Scream 5 and Scream 6, the legacy, I mean, now I'm thankful for how they were using Scream 5, but after seeing I Know What You Did Last Summer, but I feel like they were used for, like, trailer clips and marketing, like, oh, they're back, come see it. But when it happened to do with the story, they couldn't care less.
Well,
that's harsh. They cared, but you know what I mean. They didn't use them to their effect.
And it's interesting because you look at that trilogy that Blumhouse did, and those 3 movies, 2018, I think, is very mainstream, but Kills and Ends, they are very artsy and they do kind of controversial, divisive things. And even with that creativity, they still hugged close to Jamie Lee Curtis. They not only used her to market the movie, but Halloween 2018, she is the main focal point. I know Corey Cunningham is technically the main character in Halloween Ends, but I think that it's a co-lead situation given the structure and how the movie arcs. And so I don't think that, like, Laurie is necessarily sidelined in Halloween Ends. I think that she's a co-main character. So I don't know. I just think that, like, I look at these two and I'm just like, why didn't we do it this way? So it's almost like we kind of get a fresh fresh start now with Scream 7. Scream 7 is 2018. Maybe in Scream 8, Sidney does take more of a back seat like Laurie did in Kills, but then Sidney will come back in Scream 9. I think that's a realistic thing that we all should be prepared for, I think. Amar, what are your thoughts here?
Yeah, I agree with everything both of you have said, to be honest. I mean, I just, looking back at it now, I just think that the guys that wrote Scream 5 and Scream 6 clearly wanted to cater to a new audience, hence why it was called Scream and not Scream 5. We know that for sure, and obviously they used the star power, especially General Ortega. But looking back at it now, I mean, obviously at the time they were successful and they can argue, well, look, they made more money than Scream 4. And you have to understand that the essence, like you guys are talking about, of Scream is not only Ghostface, but it is Sidney Prescott, right? And I felt that her in Scream 5, she really was sidelined. She was everything that we see, as you've mentioned before, previously on many episodes, everything we see in the trailer is in the film. There is nothing extra to Sidney Prescott. And it's just sad that she wasn't in 6, but I think it worked to the advantage of having a Scream 7 because she clearly didn't want to come back, whether it was paid dispute or not. But realistically, what role would she have been given? I guess we'll never know. Yeah, people listening now will say, "Well, it's the new generation," but no, she is the face of Scream, And but I've seen this, I've seen this argument on Twitter. I've seen it on Instagram, and I try to listen to these people. I try to be, let me be open minded. But when push comes to shove, it is about Neve Campbell. It is about Sidney Prescott, and I think people need to respect that and appreciate that she is the ultimate final girl.
Well, and again, I just want to say, I don't think it has to be a this or that, in terms of like ushering in the young, hot new cast, like Anthony said, or like you said, like, a new generation. Because like I look at, I know that I already said this, but I just want to hit this home. I think Andi Matichak is awesome and as Allison. I love Allison. I think she's a very interesting character. She grows in each of the movies. She is realistic. She's grounded. And again, like I think that David Gordon Green picked the actress really well for this character. It never feels like she's trying to replace Laurie, but I think she complements her, and that's part of the charm of the character, of the actress, of these new films. It works really well. How also this trilogy wasn't afraid to kill people. So I don't know what happened along the way, right, where Scream stopped trying to kill people. But so it's just interesting to me. And again, I think that like if Scream 7 is 2018 and we get an 8 and 9, I wouldn't mind if like I could see Isabel May being that Andi Matichak equivalent. She could be. I mean, I've seen Isabel May in act. She is really, really phenomenal. I think she's going to blow people's socks off, and I could see her being like an Andi Matichak, but even to a bigger degree, because I think Tatum is going to be such a breakout. And like I see almost like a parallel between like Jamie Lee and Andi Matichak with Neve Campbell and Isabel May in Scream 7 and hopefully beyond. So I think it's all good. So, all right, gents, let's move on now and get away from the Blumhouse trilogy and talk about the superior Halloween movie, Halloween H20. So let's just lay it all out there. I know we're all fans, but let's if you want to say a word or two about where you sit on Halloween H20 and generally how you see it in regards to Scream 7, whether that's Kevin, whether that's just the general seventh installment. What are your thoughts? Let's start with Amar.
Halloween H20 is fantastic. I saw that at the cinema 4 times. Back in 1998, I was in love with it. I love the Scream aspect of it. It does feel like a Kevin Williamson film. It's snappy. It's got a short runtime, and yet it still manages to cover so many aspects of Laurie's character, her arc, her trauma. We get a son. We get these flashbacks. It's so many iconic moments. I've always thought that it was a fantastic film, and I am one of those people that isn't afraid to say that at times I actually think it's more fun than the original. But the original is in high regards. It's the one that started it all. So I'm not going to say that that it's better, but for me, it's just more enjoyable. So I love it. I've seen it so many times. I could probably quote it word for word like I can the first 3 Scream films. And also in regards to Scream 7, you know what? I haven't really thought about it. I just think that when I realized that Halloween H2O is Halloween 7, that struck a chord. I was like, it's just ironic, or fate has brought it together. But like you said, it's a shame that Kevin Williamson didn't get a writing credit, because in the UK when it first came out, that's how it was marketed, written by Kevin Williamson. So everybody was rushing to the cinema to see it for that reason.
Well, Anthony, how about you?
I mean, I'm a 90s kid. Halloween H2O is like one of the most important movies to me of all time. I was 6 when I was shown the first Halloween from my dad, and that's my favorite movie of all time. And when I was 6, when Halloween H2O came out, so I caught up to H2O and I saw it right when it came out on VHS because I'm old, and I fell in love with it. It's my third favorite Halloween movie after the original two, original Halloween, Halloween 2. And the reason why I think it's so special, not because, I mean, this is Halloween meets Scream, but Kevin knows how to write his leading ladies. And what a comparison to Scream 7, I'm so excited because everyone's like, why do you like sequels so much? And why do you like, part twos and all this? I'm like, because you see the progression of our final girls and our characters. And I feel like in H2O, it's so important to me because it's almost like the culmination of like everything Laurie has been building up to and everything she's gone through and just her complete character arc. And I'm so excited to see Kevin be in charge of the most important, in my opinion, like female character in horror history in 7, and to see what her culmination's going to be. She has a family now. She's been through this for 20, almost 30 years. It's going to be 30 years when this movie comes out. So I'm just so excited to see the parallels like that where she's going to be front and center on that poster, and she's also going to be front and center in the movie. And that's exactly what H2O is. So I'm just so excited to see what such a smart writer does, directing and writing a female lead who's so important to him and a character he created. So it's just so special.
Isn't it cool that Kevin got to do this story twice, once for Laurie Strode, once for Sidney Prescott in the 7th film, and kind of really get to hit home this really important story for each of them, which is their relationship with their child and trauma and how that kind of comes out in them as a parent. And we don't know what's going to happen with Sidney. So that's part of the quest for us today, is to figure out, or to make predictions or to just think about, how H2O could impact Scream 7, which is great. And I'll echo both of what you guys said. I watched H2O to prepare for my podcast this week. And I was just like, I was in heaven. I was so happy, and I'm just excited for fall. I'm excited for Halloween, and this is my Halloween movie. Like the character development of Laurie Strode, like Anthony was saying, like this is why we love sequels. This is why we love Scream 2 and 3. This thing is cut from the same cloth. One last thing, as we learned that Scream 7 was going to be about Sidney's older teenage daughter, like, because at first, when Scream 7 was announced, we all kind of assumed her daughters were very young. So there was a moment where we thought that it would be more like Halloween 4, having 2 little kids running around versus a teenager. And it was probably the smarter choice to go this route, even though people that makes fans nervous. That makes Sidney fans nervous because we're always afraid, right, that we're going to get that Sidney's going to be pushed aside for the teenage daughter. And I don't think that's what's happening. And actually, H2O has been a very useful tool for me to help people understand what they're actually doing with Scream 7, which is this is a Sidney story, and her daughter is supporting her story and helping bring out these things in her. I think that's beautiful, just the way that John did for Laurie Strode. So why wouldn't we want that for Sidney Prescott? There's a lot to do with it, and because H2O is shorter, like Amar was saying, it's a very lean runtime. Scream movies are longer. They're usually 20 to 30 minutes longer. So we'll get even more of that. We'll get such a rich story of Sidney and Tatum, just like we got Laurie and John. So, okay, guys, let's start the game here. Will we see the following H2O moment in Scream 7? Okay, the opening shot. Okay, I think the opening shot of H2O is so cool. It's the image of the hand coming up with a knife going into the pumpkin. I feel like there could be a jump image that starts out the movie in Scream 7 like that is for Halloween H2O. I have a prediction, but I want to hear from Anthony or Amar. Do you think we'll get a jump image like this that's kind of iconic, symbolic to start out the movie? Anthony?
I think we might get a slow zoom in the new movie. That's what I'm not going with a quick jump cut, a quick jump in. I'm thinking it's going to be slow and more cinematic. We're not going to jump right in. I'm so want to know your prediction so bad though.
All right, Amar, how about you?
Yeah, I'm going to go with Anthony, actually, because whilst he was talking, I just literally, my brain went back to each of the Scream films and how they all start, and none of them do that. And I just think that he will just continue a trend, but I'd be like, I don't mind being wrong in this. I mean, like Anthony, I want to know what your prediction is.
So my prediction is, we have seen this image of a framed photograph of Stu Macher, like a portrait of him. Someone posted it from the set back in February. It's made its rounds on Twitter, on Instagram. I think it's almost going to be that. That's going to start the movie because we know Matthew Lillard is going to be a big role in this. There's going to be a heavy use of Stu in some respect. I think, why not just scare everybody like, holy shit, there's Stu as the first image, but could be wrong. Okay. So I think this one should be an easy one that we all agree on. Survivor opening scene. A la Marion Chambers and Halloween H2O. I say no because Scream already did this with Cotton Weary. What are our thoughts, Amar?
No, I think it'll be a new character, someone that we've not met before, someone that's just, unfortunately in the wrong place at the wrong time, and probably get a phone call like Casey did. So I'm expecting that kind of opening.
Okay, Anthony?
Agreed. I originally thought it would be pretty epic and intense to have it be Chad or Mindy and or both, but now with some of what we're hearing, no leaks, but like that they may be working for Gale, that's clearly, I don't think they're going to go that route. So I think it's going to be two brand new characters. We're going to have more than one death in the opening scene, though. That's what my prediction is.
Cool. And right, because H2O has 3. That's cool. Scream has never had that. So, okay, here's one. Do we think that we'll see Sidney screaming and having a nightmare in the same way that Laurie does? Not necessarily the first shot of her, but do you think at some point we'll see Sidney doing this? Again, I'm going to say no because we already saw this in Scream 3. There's a lot of... As much as H2O could be a script like Scream 7, I think that H2O is more akin to Scream 3. So it's just interesting to see which one will prevail after we see Scream 7. But nightmare, screaming, Sidney waking up, perhaps Tatum helping her, after she is upset. What do we think? Anthony?
I'm going to go with yes, but I don't think it's going to happen this early in the movie. I think it's going to be after an attack or killing happens and she's going to have one, and then Tatum or her husband will come in and be like, what's going on? But I'm going to say yes.
Okay, Amar?
I'm going to say yes only because of who's returning. So maybe it's like Dewey or Stu or someone, or Roman even.
Roman, I was going to say, if Amar dares to fucking not include him, like...
I was going through
it's going to be all of them.
Yeah, probably. So, because I've thought about this so much, I'm like, how are they going to be in this film? The fact that they've been advertised so extensively. So there must be a dream sequence in there somewhere for Sidney, definitely.
Okay, so one of my favorite things about Halloween H2O is what I'm calling the Act 1, or the first half of the movie, the Act 1 arc of John and Laurie. And it is the fact that they have 3 different scenes that kind of lead to a result, or lead to a change in both of them. So first they have a scene in the house after the nightmare where they're just having breakfast, having a discussion. He wants to go to Yosemite. She doesn't want him to go. She's afraid of that. And they have a discussion about the past, about the dad, about the trauma with Michael, whatever. Then he sneaks out of the school. She catches him in the street and she freaks out at him. They scream at each other in public, and then they kind of end in a place where neither of them really are getting it, if that makes sense. They're not getting each other. And then the third scene is in the classroom where Laurie decides, they both kind of change their tune. John doesn't want to go to Yosemite anymore, and Laurie decides to let him go. Halloween H2O is such a well-written film. What other horror movie does something so complex in a matter of 40 minutes, right? With 2 characters having this boom, ba-doom, ba-doom change and growth. Awesome. But do we think that we'll see something like this with Sidney and Tatum, whether that's located in the first act or across the film overall? I think it won't be so condensed like it is in H2O. I think it's going to be, from the beginning of the movie through the finale, in my opinion. So, Anthony, what say you?
I'm going to say yes, but I don't believe, because Sidney and Laurie, while they're so different, Sidney's not going to be, because Laurie just lets loose and freaks out. I don't think Sidney's as abrasive. I think it's going to be, like you said, gradual throughout the movie, and she's going to be more like, I'm looking out for you, I'm doing this, not like, what the fuck do you think you're doing? Not like, you know what I mean? But I do think we're going to have some of that. Obviously, we need conflict between the mom and daughters, so we're going to have some of that, but she's not going to be as, balls to the wall as Laurie was in H2O.
What the fuck do you think you're doing? That was me at Amar about 2 minutes ago when he failed to include Scott Foley in that list. Speaking of, Amar, what are your thoughts?
Right, okay, yeah, so I do think we're going to get that moment, but I don't think she's going to be as understanding as Laurie is towards the end, because by that point, Laurie realizes, oh, well, maybe it's just me. There's no Michael, but clearly in this film, there will be killings. There will be a ghost face. Sidney will realize, yeah, I still need to protect my daughter. She just needs to have this moment to understand. So I still think she will be very protective, but I think they'll get to understand each other as more and more deaths and bodies pile up. So yeah, they're definitely going to be at each other's throats at one point. I expect the character of Tatum to be, like this, like John says, if you want to be tied to your dead brother, whatever. So she might have a line similar to that, but I think that they'll come around pretty quickly.
Well, and there's a chance that Sidney hasn't told Tatum everything. It seems like Laurie told John everything. So I think that could be a key difference where Sidney has protected Tatum from so much of what happens. She may know bits and pieces about who she's named after and like the fact that this has happened to her, but she doesn't know the extent to which Sidney has been through. And I think that part of the movie will be that. I expect Sidney to be a calmer presence, and I expect there to be a lot of richness to come out of that. So, okay, how about this? One of the great things about H2O is the Laurie seeing visions of Michael. First, she sees him in the glass at the school, on the street, and then the third time she sees him, it's actually real. And that's really, really clever writing on H2O's part. Do we think that Sidney will have any moments like this over the film of Scream 7?
She will, I think, but not with Ghostface per se. I think it'll be more with the characters that we've mentioned that have deceased, maybe Dewey, Roman even, and even Stu. So I think, yeah, perhaps it will be those characters, but if she sees Ghostface, it'll really be Ghostface. It won't be an image of Ghostface. I think she's dealt with so many before. That's not the problem. It's the dead people, like, with Scream 3 and stuff. So, yeah, maybe.
Yeah, I agree 100%. Anthony, how about you?
110% verbatim what Amar said. It's going to be Dewey.
Cool. Oh my God.
Yeah.
I want it to be all of them. I want it to be Roman. I want it to be Jill. I want it to be Roman and Jill together. I want it to be Maureen. I want it to everybody. But okay. So interesting thing that H2O does. Yes, there is a young, hot teen cast, like to use Anthony's phrase about Scream 5. But the way that they're introduced in the movie, I mean, it's introduced through John, of course, because he is the tie to Laurie, and he's like kind of like the front facing lead. But they're not like, it's not an overabundance of character development or time we spend with them. It's very brief, it's very curt, it's concise, and it doesn't overshadow Laurie. And this is the moment where I think this is like where Scream 7 is really going to get its juice from H2O. They're going to keep the focus on Sidney. I think whatever we see of Tatum's friends, it's going to be equivalent in substance and in screen time to what we see of John and his friends at school here. So, Anthony, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I agree. I think that it's going to be actually pretty similar. I think the main focus, it's going to be on Tatum, Sidney. I don't think I think the side characters H2O are more than, like, I love Molly. I love these side characters. I think enough's done with them. But again, it doesn't take away from why we're here. Sidney and Tatum, Laurie and John. So I think they'll be substantial and not throwaway, but I don't want to I don't want to be with them for longer than I have to be, but I want them to mean something like Molly, and then like the two other friends that were good. So I think it's going to be very similar, actually. I think Kevin knows to like not take too much of the spotlight away from this, Tatum, Sidney, mother-daughter. But I think maybe if the friends like come over the house and like Sidney's interacting with them more than Laurie did, because we didn't really get too much of Laurie with the two other friends. We get Laurie and Molly and John at the end, but I think he might have it where like they all come to the house and hang out. So Sidney's a part of it too, or go, if she does own a coffee shop, go to the coffee shop, they all hang out. So I think it's gonna be integrated a little bit better with all of them.
I'm gonna go with what you guys have said. I just wanted to add that what I like about what H2O did was, you're right, you don't spend a lot of time with them, but it's the way they're written, and especially the two actresses perform those characters. You care for them, they're there, and like you said, they don't overshadow anyone. So I think Scream 7 will do the exact same thing.
So and I agree with that. And like the thing is, is it bad to say this? I think the characters, here of like, so we have Sarah and Charlie, Molly, and I think that they are better characters. They're better developed, better personalities, more realistic than the people we meet in Scream 5 and 6, especially 6. Like, I don't know. I'm sorry.
Agreed.
I knew that was, well, come on, Yeah, I get what you're saying. Definitely Scream 6. I will agree with that. Scream 5 characters I've come to really appreciate, to be honest with
definitely
you.
Molly, though. Definitely Molly's way more developed.
Okay.
Yeah, but I think Sarah's a standout character in H2O, to be honest.
Sarah.
She taught me the word repugnant, so there you go.
Jodie Lynn O'Keefe told the Happy Horror Time folks, my friends Matt and Tim and Jacob, that Kevin Williamson told her recently that her death scene in H2O was one of his favorite that he's ever written. So I think that's very, very nice and very cute.
I agree.
So, okay. So going off of that is Sidney interacting with the friend group. I think that Anthony already kind of alluded to it, the coffee shop of it all. That's because Sidney allegedly owns a coffee shop in Scream 7. That is the perfect way for the new friends to be introduced and Sidney to be in their orbit before the killings start to happen. And I think like the comparison that we could draw is in H2O, Laurie is literally the teacher of the class where, they're talking and she's with Molly and whomever else. And Molly kind of sees Michael in the same way that Laurie did back in 1978.
Yeah, I think Sidney would be a very protective mother. She knows what's happened in the past, so I think she'd obviously kind of vet these friends and get to know these friends and know their parents perhaps. So we will get a lot of interaction, maybe not loads of it, but it's definitely going to be there. And like you guys have said, because she owns a coffee shop, they're definitely going to turn up there. So yeah, there'll definitely be some interactions there.
And Ant-Man?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's important. While we'll see Tatum interact with her friends, I think it's also important to see Sidney do it. So when the bodies do start piling up, we saw Sidney in a scene with them, so we see how much it affects her again. So I think it's very important that Sidney does have some interaction other than through her daughter.
Right. All right. Now here's a curveball for everybody. So in H2O, there is, we get to know the characters. There's a lot of development. The ball is rolling. And then we have this little moment scene where there's the mom and the little girl, Casey, in the bathroom stall in the middle of the highway in the middle of nowhere. And do we think that Scream 7, after developing, the plot a little bit, will divert in the same way for an unexpected related moment that still kind of ties in overall? Mar, what are your thoughts?
No, I don't think so. I think Scream hasn't really done that, especially throughout the middle of a film. Usually you get to know all the characters, and I think if they're going to do that, it'll be the opening sequence. I don't think that depending on the narrative, for H2O it makes sense because Michael's making his way there, so there's a little bit of a diversion there. But no, I don't think we'll get anything like that in Scream 7 at all, to be honest. I don't think there's any need to, because there's so many characters in there. They're going to try to develop them and then guess who the killer is, sort of thing, with these people. So hopefully there's no need.
Anthony?
Yeah, I kind of agree. Unless Ghostface is trying to get through someone to get to one of his targets, I don't see it happening. I could see it being a cool set piece, so I'm not afraid, but I'm thinking like studio would be like, oh, that'd be a cool set piece kind of thing. But I think Kevin Smarter wants to get to the meat of it and not just have a throwaway. Not that I actually think that's an excellent scene, but like Amar said, it's important because Michael's trying to find his way to Laurie, where in Scream, everyone's already directly involved, so the killer's already where he or she needs to be. So I'm going to go with Amar.
I'm going to surprise you guys. I actually think that there will be something similar, and I'm going to tell you what I think it is based off of the rumor mill. So it's been widely reported basically since January of, leaks from the set that Gail allegedly hits and runs over a Ghostface with the twins in the car. I think that this is going to be that equivalent. I think it's going to happen around the same time that it happens in H2O. And I think that it's going to allow for a little bit of a divergence of the plot, and that will eventually tie into the larger mosaic of the movie, however it ties in. So I think yes. So woohoo.
Well, I've never heard that rumor before, so that's intrigued me.
Well, that's because Mar, everything all the news you learn about Scream is from me literally telling you directly. Voice memo. Hey, Mar, I just learned this thing.
Yeah, that is true. That is true.
And there's only I'm one man, Amar. I can't tell you everything. So you have to do your own research, as my activist friends online would say. Do your research. One of my favorite things about H2O is the relationship between Laurie and Will. I think it's a really smart adult relationship that's depicted with a lot of grace and maturity, emotional intelligence. So do we think that we will get these moments of, the way that Laurie and Will have these deep conversations in the coffee house and whenever she confesses, whenever they're kissing on Halloween night? Do we think that we will get that with Sidney and Mark, and we will get a real depiction of their marriage and how they relate to each other as human beings, as a couple?
Yes, we're going to definitely get these kind of scenes 100%. I'm actually not the biggest fan of Will, as I think he's a little pushy with all right, take your clothes off, and then he takes her to pretty much tell him yo, this story's about me, I almost died. So I wasn't too upset when Will went, but I do think that it's going to be handled with more, Mark's going to come at it with more care. I'm not saying that Will's a bad person, but I just think Mark, obviously they're married, so it's going to be a little different scenario, but they're going to definitely have plenty of those scenes and clashes like that, and I cannot wait to see them, chew up the scenery together.
We need the trumpets playing right now for an announcement. For everyone who says out there that Anthony and I always agree 100%, mark the calendar, mark the day, because we disagree here. I love Will so much. I think that he's such a great character. I've always been kind of infatuated with him, of them as a couple. And personally, I feel like he and I would make a great couple. I'll just say that. So, okay. Amar, what are your thoughts here?
Yeah. Okay. So I expect Mark to be husband 101. I expect him to be like the best person, a very understanding person. I expect him to be a rock for Sidney, even though she doesn't need that rock, but you know what I mean? Sometimes you just need a shoulder to lean on. I expect him to be understanding, caring, thoughtful. There's just something that tells him this is who he's going to be. He's going to be the person that's just, perfect husband material sort of thing. So that's what I expect from him. And of course, they're going to have deep conversations because she's not just going to marry anyone, because clearly this is not Mark Kincaid. So she has to get to know this guy and understand this guy. So, yeah.
So, Amar, break the tie here. Are you pro or anti-Will?
I like Will. I like
Thank
a good
you.
guy. I just want to say I get what Anthony's saying, but I don't agree with it. The more I've seen H2O, the more I wanted this guy to survive because he's a really nice guy.
And Ryan wins again. So suck it, Anthony. All right. Okay, so next one is really fun, and I have a great answer for myself. So there is a huge cameo in Halloween H2O, and this was before like the days of Easter egging and the constant, ooh, look at this homage, I'm so cute, But so Jamie Lee got to have a big moment with her mom, Janet Leigh, on screen. We had Janet Leigh bringing the psycho car with her. Do we think that there will be a cameo equivalent of Janet Leigh in Scream 7? It's hard to say because there are already so many cameos that are announced, but do you think that there's going to be something similar to this? Anthony?
No, but how ironic and iconic would it be if Jamie Lee Curtis would be the cameo in Scream 7? I don't think it's going to happen, but that's my wish and dream, to have Sidney, Prescott, Jamie Lee Curtis, and Neve Campbell on the screen together. I know they've been in a movie together, but I want to see, in a Scream movie, that would be iconic. I don't think it's going to happen, but that would be so sweet. And a throwback to her Halloween movies, like it was a throwback to Psycho, have something in there, do a little hint of the Halloween score like they did with Psycho. That would have been so cute, but I think it might be a little too much. I don't think it's going to happen.
See, I think that exactly. I think the most equivalent you could find to Janet Leigh, to Jamie Lee Curtis, would be for Jamie Lee Curtis to be that cameo to Neve Campbell. And like Anthony said, there's a lot that's going to be going on in this movie, and we live in the culture of Easter eggs. So if it doesn't happen here, which it's a very slim chance that it will, I would love to see a Jamie Lee Curtis cameo in the style of Janet Leigh in Scream 9 with Sidney, as a way to be like, that will be the ending of Scream for a lot of reasons, even if it goes on in the future. But Amar, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm going to agree with you guys on that front, that I don't think we're going to have that type of cameo, but I just have this sneaky feeling that even though the likes of Dewey and Stu and Roman have been announced, I reckon that there is going to be another ex-dead Ghostface or someone in the past that might pop up. Maybe Jill, or maybe I'm just hopeful for it. But that's as much as I think we'll get.
Okay, well, thank you for keeping our expectations grounded and realistic. So, okay. Do we think that Tatum will be rebellious like John, in terms of John is pretty adventurous and he's not Mr. Safety, right? He'll skip out on school. He'll go steal alcohol. He'll not go to Yosemite. He'll hide in the basement. He'll jump through windows.
100%. If I know Kevin Williamson really well, this daughter of hers is not going to be like Sidney Prescott was in Scream 1 at all. And I think he knows how to write a bit of drama. I've seen a lot of the stuff that he's done in the past with Vampire Diaries and did he do OC or something? He did something anyway.
Dawson's Creek, man.
Dawson's Creek, that's what I meant.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I think for us to get that drama, we definitely have to have some sort of rebellious teen, because she clearly isn't going to want to listen to her mum completely until the bodies start piling up. So, yeah, I expect it to be a bit of a handful.
Anthony, how about you?
1000% this is happening. I mean, it's horror movie 101 when you have someone who went through so much trauma trying to protect their kids, maybe, shelter them a bit too much, where they're going to want to lash out. And again, John, to me, didn't do any, he lashed out, but he wasn't I didn't hate him. I'm like, yeah, I understand both perspectives. So I think it's going to be very similar in 7, where obviously we're Team Sidney, but we understand why her daughter is being a little rebellious and lashing out a bit. So it's going to be a very, very similar, I believe.
Yeah, I do too. I think the difference is I think Sidney's going to keep it in check more than Laurie. I think Laurie sometimes flies off the handle, whereas I think Sidney, she's such a internalized person, and she's such a thoughtful person in terms of how she speaks, when she speaks. And I think Tatum is going to be very feisty. I think Tatum will be a lot like Tatum herself, back in the original Tatum. God, that's going to be annoying to differentiate the two, but in conversation. But yeah, so. All right, guys, next. Laurie's use of substances in terms of alcoholism and pills. I think that like H2O actually does it very classy compared to Halloween 2018. It's the one thing I think it's too much in Halloween 2018. This, I think, is actually a really intelligent conversation that it has. Like the Chardonnay is iconic, right? But it's such a smart thing to do and to discuss, right? And to think about. So do we think that we'll see Sidney either on pills or drinking too much? What do we think, Anthony?
No, I do not. I don't think she's gonna handle it the same way. We've seen how she handles it throughout 4 or 5 movies already, and she's never once turned to booze or alcohol or drugs. And it's a little different because Laurie had like 20 years in between her one night. So that's a little different. Sidney kind of went through it consecutively, and then she had a little bit of a break. But I think she has so much going for her, and I think that she really got herself together, and I think that she actually did the opposite. I know Laurie's like pretending to be all together. I think Sidney's, for the most part, besides wanting to protect her kids, going to do the opposite way. And that Chardonnay scene, I always say one of my favorite scenes in H2 has nothing to do with horror. It's just Jamie Lee Curtis, Laurie Strode. It's just so smart the way she does that to keep it from Will. You think she's being rude, but you know why she's doing it. Oh, it's so smart. But no, Sydney's not going to handle it like that. She's going to do the opposite.
And the smart thing about that is I think that's more realistic about how alcoholics actually hide their alcoholism.
Yep.
And I don't even know if Laurie would be an alcoholic or if she's just drinking especially because it's Halloween, right? It's that
Right.
one time of the year she's especially stressed out. But that's how real alcoholics probably hide it, as opposed to the way that like the Laurie coming into the restaurant in 2018 and chugging the glass of wine.
I agree.
Amar, how about you? Pills and alcohol?
No, I don't think so. I think the fact that she's a mother, a wife, and like Anthony said, that she's been through this many times. If she wanted to turn to all that kind of stuff, she would have done so by now. And I think that she's going to be quite a responsible person, like she always has been, to be honest. She's been quite careful with everything that she's done throughout the franchise. And yeah, so I agree with what Anthony said. And also, if we go back to what H2O taught me as a person that's never had alcohol, it also taught me the word Chardonnay, and I looked it up as this is what it is. So there you go.
See, Amar is one of my greatest friends in the world, but the difference between us is I'm a wino and he's a nino, I guess. Never had it.
Yeah,
So,
never had it.
All right. So, okay. One of the great moments of H2O is when Laurie has just kind of poured her heart out to Will. She's told him the truth and she's trying to process, and then she has this moment. He says to her, "How old were you?" And she says 17. And then she has this realization, oh my God, my son's 17. Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. This could be happening to him. Do we think that Sidney will have a similar moment? Amar?
No, I think that she's already thought this through, to be honest. I don't think it's going to surprise her. I mean, yeah, she will. You know what? Actually, yes and no. I think she will think, oh, wait a minute. My daughter is, well, I assume she's the same age as Sidney was in Scream 1, or about that age. So, yeah, she might have that moment like, oh, yeah, you were the same age as me, so I know what, understand me when I'm telling you this, this, and this. But I don't think she'll have like a light bulb moment. I think she'll have already thought this through, to be honest. So, yeah.
Anthony?
Yeah, I agree. I think it's not, I wouldn't say light bulb moment. I think it's just going to be like in relation to comforting Tatum, or like, I know how you feel, like the kind of a Jill mirror, but it's like actually real this time.
Yeah.
Which I know a lot of people say this. I know you feel, but I know how you feel. It's real this time because she's like, you're my daughter. I went through the same exact thing at your age. It's gonna be like kind of that realization. I don't think she's gonna have like a dumb moment. Like, and it works in H2O. I love it so much because it's so iconic, but it's also different because it's one boogeyman versus like so many for Sidney. So I think it's also different in that regard. But no, I think Sidney's just ahead of the game at all times. And once she sees one body pop up, she's gonna be like, I don't even need to have that realization. Like, go mode. So yeah.
I think it's going to be different, but I think it's going to be deeper. I think that we're going to see a
Yeah.
lot of really deep character moments between Sidney and Gale, Sidney and Tatum. That's good. Okay, so next, this is the thing that inspired me to do this, is a chase with John leading to Laurie coming face to face with Michael through a door. And we already know from leakers who can't stop posting spoilers online that Tatum has a big chase scene in the outdoor area surrounding Sidney's coffee shop. I think it's just a destiny thing that Tatum is going to be chased around town. Sidney's going to be at the coffee shop late at night. Let her in, and then she and Ghostface are going to come face to face in the same way that Laurie and Michael do. Anthony, what say you?
It's happening exactly how you just said it. That's 110% happening. Going to be a very similar moment, but just as iconic, and Ghostface's mask going to look way better than Michael Myers' mask looked at that moment. So it's me more. I love it. It's so goofy and fun, but it's happening. It's definitely going to happen in that sequence. I mean, I'm putting money on it that's exactly how it's going to play out. And I'm not mad. I'm just so excited for it. I'm not mad that I know. I'm just excited to see it fleshed out.
It's going to be epic. And imagine, like, let's just say Ghostface has blood on his mask, instead of like that could be a cool twist. I don't know. Amar, do you agree with us?
When you were saying that scene, I was just imagining Helen Shivers running towards her sister's shop.
Yeah.
But, obviously, if Sidney was there, she wouldn't say, wait a minute, let me go get the keys. It'd be obviously more rush than that. So I hope, I'm actually now hopeful that that's the sequence we're going to get, and that face-to-face over the glass would be fantastic.
I think it'd be a really amazing homage for Kevin to do to himself. So I love that. Okay, next one. This is a weird one, okay? But, there's an infamous moment where Will takes Laurie's gun and starts shooting somebody he thinks is Michael. It's actually LL Cool J, but then he gets attacked himself. Do we think that Mark could have a similar moment? I'm actually going to go out on a limb and say I think Mark is going to have a similar moment. He may not shoot or kill an innocent, but I think that he is going to be trying to help, and then he gets attacked, and then he gets taken down for the finale. Amar, what do you think?
Yeah, now that you've planted that seed in my head, I think that actually will happen. Or something very similar could happen, because he is going to want to protect Sidney and his daughter. So, yeah, I mean, I don't think it'll be exactly the same, because it worked with Halloween, because they both, walk up to you quite slowly, but obviously Ghostface is going to run at you, so it won't work in the same way. But yeah, something similar is definitely going to happen.
Anthony?
Yes, but not in the same way. I don't think Mark's gonna be with Sidney and something appears and he thinks it's Ghostface. I think it's gonna be more in line with Sidney or a child or one of his children gonna be in danger, and he's gonna go out of his way to put himself in danger, and it's gonna backfire and probably lead to his demise. So
okay,
that's yeah.
All right. So let's just take a poll here. Which of us, I know we haven't met him. We know nothing about this dude, but do we want Mark to die? I say yes. Anthony, what say you?
I mean, I don't want him to die because of how much I'm thinking he's going to mean to Sidney, but yeah, he has to die in this movie to make an impact, leave an emotional impact on the girls and Sidney and lead to an 8. It's poetic if he dies at the end. I don't know if it's going to happen in the middle, right before the third act, or at the end of the movie, though. That's where I'm torn on, but yeah, he's dying. I mean, yeah, he needs to die.
Amar?
No, I don't want him to die, because if you look back at Sidney, everybody dies. If you know Sidney, then you die. I mean, Ghostface said it himself. So, if you look at 1, her mother died, her father's no longer there, Derek died, Dewey's dead, Tatum's dead, Hattie's dead, everybody that she loves. And he'll get attacked, he'll get stabbed, but I don't want him to die. I hope he doesn't.
To be honest, I'm actually I'm closer to Amar's position than I've ever have been, but I still would probably prefer a big death just because. But at the same time, what if 7's it? I don't know.
You know what it is? There's going to be a big death, and I don't want it to be Gale. I'd rather it be Mark, so that's another big thing of it, too.
You see, I don't think Gale will die, personally. But yeah, obviously, Courtney Cox over everybody for me. But for Sidney's sake, I don't want her to go through all that again. I really don't. I think, yeah, he could be injured, yeah, like Dewey was. But I think she definitely needs, some good in her life. Rainbow. I mean, obviously, I don't know. Her daughter probably won't die. What if her daughter's a killer, by the way? But I know, long shot. But I really don't. For her sake, I don't want him to die.
Well, to Amar's credit, he had someone who she thought was her lover turn out to be a killer, and she had someone who really turned out to be her lover in Derek die. So she did already experience the two. So his credit, it would be a kind of a flip it to have Mark at least make it till 8 and be by her side after the finale. So I didn't think about it from that perspective till just now.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I think Mark can be a fun thing that we debate until February 25th. So, okay. 3 more. So leading into the finale, Laurie sends John away and she faces Ghostface by herself. Do we think that this will be similar where Sidney sends Tatum away, or she gets the killers by herself and she's just one-on-one with them? Or do we think it will be Sidney and Tatum together versus the Ghostface or Ghostfaces? Anthony?
I think obviously Sidney's going to be alone at some point in the finale. I don't know if it's going to be because Sidney sends Tatum away or because she's going to save Tatum. I think it might be more the latter. but I think it's going to be so special. And yeah, Sidney will be, I think they're going to be together in the finale for a little bit, but Sidney will be alone at some point. And that scene in Halloween H2O beside Laurie walking up to the campus with that axe is my favorite scene, because you feel like John yelling, mom, come with, and then she's crying, and then Laurie's just like, go, yes, do as I say now, go. I'm like, that, I teared up like the first, I'm like, that is just so emotional between a mother and son love. So I think we're gonna have a sequence like that, but I don't think it's gonna be, I think it might be Sidney going to save Tatum, or vice versa, Tatum going to save Sidney, but they will be separate at some point.
I think actually they're going to be together, but but we need that emotion. We need that moment. I think that like H2O is like Scream 3, where they're alone, right? I think that was Sidney's moment to be alone. And this time I think that they are going to kind of get off on like having them together. Amar, what say you?
Wow, I'm looking back, and I mean, she kind of gets her alone moment in all first 4 films, if you think about it.
Yeah.
In Scream 1, it's her for a long time with the killers. In Scream 2, Gail's there, but then she disappears, and it's just her and Mrs. Loomis, and obviously Roman and her. Even in Scream 4, it's just her and the killers. So I think they'll change it up, and I think Tatum and her will be there. I mean, she might, like Anthony said, she might be going there to rescue Tatum, but I don't expect Sidney to have too much alone time with Ghostface, I think. And like I said, I'm hopeful that Tatum will survive and she isn't the killer, and so they won't go down that route, obviously. But yeah, I think that they'll both be there side by side for quite a lot of it, actually.
The epilogues. It's interesting because Scream usually has an epilogue that takes place the next day. I guess Scream 5 is the exception, but like it's always like the next morning or something. H2O's epilogue happens at night. It's a continuation of the events we had. It just goes on further into the evening, and it's another confrontation. So what do we think? Do we think Scream 7 will be like that, or do we think Scream 7 will stick to the formula of the next day? So Amar,
I think it'll be like a Scream 1 thing where it's just the sun's coming up and that kind of thing. So I don't think we'll have well, it depends really. If Mark dies, it depends. If he dies, then it could change that completely. But I expect it to be very much like Scream 1, where it is, because obviously they go late into the night and into the early morning, so technically it is a different day, but not really. So yeah, like that.
Anthony?
I'm kind of like so torn with this one. My prediction in my head is that it's gonna be resolved like we're gonna get unmasked. But after, the epilogue, I want to say this is where I do truly think that we're going to find out that there's a loose end and there's another Ghostface on the loose, and that Sidney's going to come home to either see Mark already killed or, being killed. I think it's going to end with Sidney having something very traumatic happen. Not a true cliffhanger where, someone's not unmasked in the finale. I think that they're going to be unmasked, but something happens, Mark's killed, and we don't find out who a third, whatever, a blah 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 killer. So I think there's going to be something that's not your typical Scream ending, especially because they obviously have this new cast for a reason. They plan on doing more, so I do think it's going to end on a downer rather than a triumphant note as well. So yeah.
Which H2O, it's both. It's triumphant, but
Right.
it's also kind of scary and sad, and it is kind of a downer. It's both, because like it's not Scream 3's like happily ever after. Even like the other Scream movies, there's always a little bit of a happy ending. I don't think we're going to get a happy ending this time. I think it's going to kind of trail off. I think we're going to have our survivors. People are going to be safe, but I think it's going to trail off rather than and be conclusive, like be an ending, but not necessarily be, Sidney opening the gate, or, Gail and Dewey coming to visit Sidney in the hospital, or, Sidney giving the thing to Cotton and Gail jumping in the ambulance. It's going to be a bit sadder, a bit more poetic. And I think that there's going to be a looming sense that like it's not over. Like Anthony said, I don't think it's gonna be a full-on like cliffhanger or something traumatic like that. I just think it's gonna be more elusive, that whenever Scream 8 picks up, that whatever happens there makes sense. Guys, this was so much fun. Thank you. And to end, I just want to do something fun. So I want you to tell everybody where they can find you online, and do we want one of the killers to be decapitated in the way that H2O did? I say, fuck yeah. I want it at some point, whether it's now or later. I want a killer decapitated in the Scream universe. Amar, where can they find you online, and what's your stance on decapitation?
Online, you can find me on Instagram at Amar Ali Kareem, all one word, or on Twitter, it's just Amar Kareem. And I haven't thought about decapitation, but that would be fantastic. Like, why not? Because these killers need to get their comeuppance. So I think they'll go bold and gory and bloody. But I don't know if it'll happen in this one, like you said. So, but yeah, if that's what happens, I'm not going to say no to that.
Cool. Well, Amar, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
And Anthony, where can they find you?
You guys can find me on X at my name, Anthony DePuzzo, and my podcast with my buddy, Never Split Up Pod. Follow us on social media and subscribe to our YouTube. And hell yeah, I want to see Sidney chop a Ghostface's head off with an axe and have an iconic moment like that. Like Mars said, it might not happen in 7, but I want to see Sidney like be badass like that and take it. She is a badass, so let's see it. And she's protecting the people who mean the most to her, so she's gonna have to be extra badass in this one and really fight.
Yeah, I agree. You know what? I'll amend. May not happen here, but it will happen one day. It fucking better happen. Anthony, thank you so much. Amar, thank you guys. This was an amazing recording.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Scream with Ryan C. Showers. I'm your host, Ryan C. Showers. Everybody, please welcome Ashley. Hey, Ash.
Hi, Ryan.
This episode, this is actually August 5th. This is the anniversary of the release of my favorite Halloween movie, one of my favorite movies of all time, Halloween H20. And Halloween H20 has deep ties to Scream 3, in my opinion, in terms of Laurie's character arc being very similar to Sidney's character arc in Scream 3. Not only that, but the whole film is structured as like a trilogy capper in a way. It's very similar to Scream 3. And it was also made by Dimension, written by Kevin Williamson, so it feels very much Scream-like in the original trilogy sense. We are preparing to do the audio commentary for it Friday, so please tune in, subscribe to the Patreon, listen to the audio commentary. It's going to be, I'm really going to pour my whole heart and soul into it because this story, this character arc, this movie means so much to me. But not to build the movie up and then be like, Ashley, what are your thoughts on the movie? As the Ashley's going to say, I fucking hated it, right?
It's my favorite Halloween movie. I'm really sorry, everybody. I am not a Halloween girl. I'm not a big Michael Myers. Ugh, I just hate him. But like, I think it's also because he scares me so much. Like, I don't like how he feels like so invincible for me. Like, I'm just like, oh, it freaks me out. Like, I don't want to watch this. But I love H2O. I think it's so fun. Two of like my biggest crushes were Joseph Gordon-Levitt and Josh Hartnett. So I was like, oh my God, like back in the day, like this is amazing. And I love how it does have more of like, that's the type of like horror movie. Like it's more of the horror movie that I like, where there's like a little bit of comedy. There's a little bit of like, there's a lot of drama. There's some really good scares, but there's also like an underlying message of hope and resilience and badassery. And I feel like a lot of people might see that in the other Halloween movies. Like it just doesn't come out for me as much, but I love it. But it's so funny. Like I sent Ryan a memo and the only thing I said, because I didn't want to, like, I knew we were going to have this conversation, was, how does Michael Myers know how to drive? And I was like, is there lore behind that? And not that we have to discuss it, but I was just like giggling to myself after when you were saying like, I love this movie. And then my response to you was, how does he know how to drive?
Well, so a listener, obviously it was established in 1978 that Michael drove from Smith Grove to Haddonfield. Who knows how he learned how to drive? So he says maybe one of the prisoners gave him lessons. I don't know. It's never been fully explained. I think you hit on something. As a non-Halloween fan, this is what I would expect from most people. I think you can sit the average person down and put H2O on in front of them and they would enjoy it even as a non-horror fan, because the writing is so rich. Like the drama of H2O is so beautiful in terms of Laurie with her son, Laurie with her boyfriend, Laurie herself, her journey, the different scenarios she's put in to recognize her trauma, the strength that she builds in H2O. It's very Scream coded, it's very Sidney coded, but also true to the spirit of those original two movies. So I'm glad that it's your favorite movie in the franchise.
Yeah, I love it. And like, don't get me wrong, y'all. Like, I like the original Halloween. Like, I mean, and also I'm a huge Beverly Hills Housewives fan. So Kyle Richards, shout out. But I love Jamie Lee Curtis. Like she's one of my favorite actresses. I adore Jamie Lee Curtis. I think she is just so badass and fun in every movie she's in. Like somehow she's fun. Like but I mean like fun to watch. Like she's so talented and you can just I feel like she puts a lot of herself into her movies and she really cares about them. And like, I can't even tell you how excited I am for Freakier Friday, but I love her. And I think this movie is so fun. And if you can get me to watch something with Josh Hartnett with like possibly one of the worst haircuts I've ever seen and not notice it. I mean, like I worked at a hair salon for like 10 years, you guys. So like one bang out of place and sometimes I notice. And like that goofy motherfucker is just so handsome. I love another thing that I think of in this movie is when Michael takes out her boyfriend. What's his name? Is it Adam?
His name's Will.
Will. Sorry, guys. I call that like what people imagine the Dewey kill to be like. That like I was like, that's not like no, that's what that looks like. That's not what they did to him. Like that's what that looks like. I was like, he wasn't raised to the roof and thrown across the room. But and then like I love like the little like shout out to Scream 2 in it, and Michelle Williams is so good, like how she's acting scared. I also like how, I know this is going to sound really stupid, but I also like how there's a man who's shorter than his girlfriend in this movie, and I'm like a teenage boy who's a little bit shorter than his teenage girlfriend in this movie. And I thought, look at you competent short king. Because like that wouldn't have happened in a lot of that doesn't happen in a lot of movies. And I know that sounds silly that I noticed that, but
Well,
I
there's
think
actually an
there's so much I
explanation
love
for
about
that.
this movie. Oh, please tell me.
Well, it's gonna tune in for the commentary, but
Oh,
so
yes.
you know how I'll just talk about it more there, but you know how Halloween ends, there's like this copycat killer of Corey Cunningham, and it's not really Michael doing the killing until the very end.
I'm
Spoiler
kidding. I know.
alert.
No, I knew. I've listened to all about it because I won't watch it anyways. I'm too
Well,
scared.
it's actually good. I think you would like Halloween Ends because it's the least that Michael's featured, but in any of the movies. So they were originally going to do that for H2O, like have a Michael copycat, and he was going to be the Michael copycat. He was going to be murdering people instead of Michael, and then Michael, and he would interact at the end. So they took that away from the plot, which I'm glad they did. It wouldn't have fit here with everything going on with Laurie, and it's so beautiful in Halloween Ends. So, anyways, Ash, any final thoughts about H2O?
I love this movie. I also love LL Cool J. I just thought I should put that out there because that's like honestly, it's a really good like Ashley Crush lineup. I mean
Yeah,
Conan O'Brien is not in it, but
damn.
I do have a few other crushes in the world. But I love this movie. I think it's super fun. I feel like the majority of people listening to this I probably have the hot take of not loving Halloween, so I'm assuming most of you have seen it. But if you haven't, obviously the first Halloween is a classic, but I think this one is so fun. And I learned a lot from watching this movie and like trying to understand like the lore, not the parts about him driving, but just in general. And I think it's so fun. And I love when she's just like chugging the wine. So like if you guys ever want to know what it looks like sometimes when I'm stressed out, it's me talking to my partner Garrett being like, "Get me more Chardonnay."
Oh my God, that's fun. Well, so there's that. In this episode, we are using H2O as kind of a blueprint for this happened in H2O, the seventh movie in the Halloween franchise, where the legacy heroine comes back as the lead. What in H2O could happen in Scream 7. So this is a very like intimate episode for me. And I was thinking about like what song of Taylor Swift could we relate to H2O, Scream 3, and possibly Scream 7, and is worthy of that title. And I thought, oh my God, The Prophecy. And I said to Ashley, hey, what do you think about doing The Prophecy for this song? And Ashley said,
I did. Yes. I was thinking the exact same thing, and I was like, that would literally
like we independently thought, oh my God, this song encapsulates Sidney in Scream 3 and 7 and Laurie in H2O. Not only did Carrie Bradshaw get her Tortured Poets on, Scream with Ryan C. Showers, we are getting our Tortured Poets department on. Ashley, what is the Taylor Swift song of the day?
the Taylor Swift song of the day is The Prophecy. So this is on the Tortured Poets department, which came out in 2024. Technically part of the anthology. It is track 26, written and produced by Taylor and Aaron Dessner.
Whenever I first listened to this back whenever the Torture Post Department was released over a year ago in April of 24, this wasn't a song that I gravitated toward. I didn't like the beginning chord. I didn't necessarily like the production. But now, over the past, 14, 16, 18 months, however long it's been, it's one of not only my favorite songs on the Torture Post Department, but it's one of my top 10 favorite songs that Taylor Swift has ever done. I have increasingly just began listening and listening. And ironically, it started because of you. I don't know if you remember this, but you sent
Yes,
me
I do.
oh, you do. You know exactly what I'm saying. We didn't talk about this. So you sent me a message in like May or June of last year, and you said, I'm listening to The Prophecy and I'm thinking about Alicia. And Alicia from The Good Wife. And I just, that anytime like Alicia Flor gets brought in, I'm doubling down, man. Like that, I'm coming in. And I started listening to the song over and over again. And I was dealing with some personal stuff, like in terms of feeling like I had a curse on me. And there was just something that I'm never going to be able to fulfill. Over the year, this has just become a very necessary listen for me. I'm so excited to talk about it. So Ash, what are your thoughts on the song?
This song, I love the imagery in this song. I feel like it's one of those songs where you could just kind of listen to it and you might really enjoy like the cadence and the instrumental of the song. It's like really interesting. I immediately was drawn to it. But if you listen to the lyrics closely, like there's some lyrics that are just so insanely deep. But like one of my favorites is I got cursed like Eve got bitten. Was it punishment? And like she's talking about like what a lesser woman would have done and what a better woman would have done, and just like comparing herself to other women. And she's like, a greater woman would stay cool, but I howl like a wolf at the moon and I look unstable. And I'm just like, I know exactly, like I can imagine some of my behavior, imagining that's almost how I feel like I'm acting. Like, do I actually picture Taylor Swift howling at the moon? I mean, fun, maybe a little Oz and Buffy coded, but what I'm actually picturing is her just like screaming and just like, or just like being almost like a feral like feeling of how intense this feeling inside of you is, of that you're a failure or you're not going to succeed, or there is something that is this obstacle that makes this one thing that you truly want feel like it's impossible. And it does, for a lot of it, feel like she's almost talking about how
No matter what she does, she can't fix it or she can't
yes,
overcome it. The song's plot, and how I understand it, is a woman who feels cursed by something and she's spending her last dime, the last bit of her money. Like she's shelling out whatever she has to go to a psychic or a tarot card reader or somebody to tell her that it's going to be okay. And I find that to be so so eerily relatable, more than it should be. This idea there's something you can't change about yourself, no matter how hard you're trying, no matter how much you keep the faith, no matter how much positive energy you put toward changing your circumstances. Like the idea that, like, the universe keeps pushing back at you, it's so defeating. And I think Taylor captures how defeating that is. And so let's just go through some lyrics here. So the core, the big part of the chorus is, please, I've been on my knees, change the prophecy. I don't want money, just someone who wants my company. Let it once be me. Who do I have to speak to about if they can redo the prophecy? Oh my God, even just these 4 lines, so much to say. I think, I've always read like this idea of like, let it once be me. I feel that so deeply because sometimes I feel like there are other people who always, I feel like everyone else is succeeding. Everyone else is getting what they want. Everyone else is so much happier, accomplishing so much more than me, or getting picked, whereas I'm not. And I just feel like sometimes I feel like, why can't it just once be me who gets what they want? Ash, what are your thoughts?
no, I almost like got teary eyed when you were describing it earlier because I was like, oh my God, I know exactly. I feel like I am like kind of experiencing that right now in some ways. And I just, was just like something that like you can't change about yourself. And it's really hard because you're just like, why is this, like, it's like, I don't want this to be happening to anybody else, but it's like, why is this my path? And like, what is going to come out of this? And how does this make me better? And like, I don't see the end goal here. Like, I used to see the goal line and I was running towards it. And now, like, you put me on the bench and I'm trying to get back on the field. I don't know why I'm making a sports metaphor because like that's silly, but it just is what it is. But also like the comparison is like one of like the worst things in the entire world. Like when like you start comparing yourself to others' success, because also we all are wearing masks. So guaranteed those people are probably feeling the exact same way inside a lot of times. Like if
Yeah.
Taylor Swift, a billionaire who
Uh-huh.
literally has millions of fans, can say like, I don't want money. I just want somebody who wants my company. Let it once be me. Like,
Yeah.
like for her, like, I mean, obviously, I'm sure a lot of people can give an eye roll to the don't want money thing, but I feel like what she's saying there is like, I don't, like, there's something that I want more than all of this, like that I want more than all of these great things that I do have. And it's just not working out. And like, what am I, like, it almost feels like a punishment, like, or maybe she's like, I got all of these amazing things. So like, is my punishment that I don't get this other this other thing. And I feel like so many of us can relate to that in ways where sometimes we think like, oh, what did I do to deserve this? When really it's probably just a million other choices by somebody else have somehow, unfortunately, like trickled down butterfly effect style to sometimes choices aren't your own, right? Like they just are thrust upon you and she can't change it. But I love when she says, like, and I sound like an infant. And she says
Yeah.
that like the way that her cadence in this song is very like very specific and there's something really intense about it, and almost like she's like yelling at herself like in the mirror or something.
Yeah.
And when she's like, and I sound like an infant, the amount of times when like I've talked to my partner or somebody else about being like, and I'm sorry, I'm complaining. And then they go, that's okay. Like, this is like, I remember having my physiotherapist, I was explaining what was going on in my life. And I go, but you know what? Everybody has it worse. I mean, other people have it worse. And she goes, yeah, but you're still allowed to feel sad.
Yeah.
I went, what? And she goes, you're still like, yeah, like there's a lot of people that might have it quote unquote worse. Like, you're still allowed to feel sad that this is happening in your life.
Yeah.
Everybody relates to that, I think.
I think it's absolutely true. I think that the lack of control is really one, feeling like you're being punished, like you said. Oh my God, like that is me. Like sometimes I feel like, I have A, B, and C in my life, so that means I don't get D and E, and that those are like the stories we tell ourselves. And I don't think that that's necessarily true. It's just the way that the universe works, and the universe is on its own journey and we're along for its ride, and it will work out whenever it wants to. But also this idea of being desperate and like for like this, like, oh, I feel like what Taylor's doing with this song is like she's expressing like one last plea. I mean, there's a little bit of her that's resigned to what she's facing, but this is like one last plea, like, can we please just fix this? I've already done everything that I possibly can. I've come face to face with all these greater powers and nothing is working. And I know this sounds like silly, but like the line, who do I have to speak to about if they can redo the prophecy? I've always seen that in my head. I always think about like, talking to like the manager or talking to customer service. Like, it's like going the extra step. Sometimes like on the front lines, people are kind of trained to not like completely address your problem. So if like you go to the next higher up, they can remedy it. And I think that's what she's expressing there. And it's something that I definitely feel in my bones. Like, okay, who do I have to speak to fix this? You know what I mean? If I am persistent, it will get fixed. If I go higher and higher, it will get fixed. So please just help me fix it. I think that's so interesting. And like this song it's some of the strongest, deepest, most creative lyrics I think she's ever had. The visual language that she has here is really interesting. She uses oxymorons, irony in the lyrics. It's truly incredible. Ash, any thoughts before we go through the bridge?
No, I love that line about like, who do I have to speak to? Like, I literally, when I heard that, I literally pictured her like a tiny little version of Taylor, almost in like a Sabrina the Teenage Witch, almost like goofiness, like opening up a door into some sort of like realm of heaven or whatever it is and being like, excuse me, like not like why me in a complaining way, but it's like why me as like an actual question, like why is this choice being thrust upon me? Like Buffy's like, why? Like, okay, I'll be the Slayer. I'm good at it. I don't mind it. But like, why me? Like I'm just genuinely curious. Harry Potter's like, yo, why me? Luke Skywalker, yo, why me? They're all wondering. Frodo. I'm just gonna name the chosen ones now.
Well, and to bring it home, Sidney Prescott and Laurie Strode,
Mhm.
and the reason why I think the prophecy was such an easy choice for us to describe Sidney in Scream 3, Sidney in Scream 7. I'm acting like we've seen Scream 7. Sidney and the potential of Scream 7 because Ghostface is coming after her family after she feels personally fulfilled, conquered of Ghostface. She's literally hanging up on Ghostface. Like, it's not affecting her anymore. So what does Ghostface do? He goes after her family. That's like the new way to get at Sidney. Like, it's just never ending. And of course, Laurie Strode in Halloween H2O. And the thing about at least Sidney in Scream 3 and Laurie in H2O is like the prophecy aspect of this is it's unavoidable because of the sibling connection, because of the family connection. Like this link that they are cursed in a way to be for these traumatic events to be intertwined with their blood family. But before we get to them, I want to read through some of the bridge. So she says, and I sound like an infant, feeling like the very last drops of an ink pen. A greater woman stays cool, but I howl like a wolf at the moon, and I look unstable, gathered with a coven around a sorcerer's table. A greater woman has faith, but even statues crumble if they're made to wait. I'm so afraid I've sealed my fate. No sign of soulmates. I'm just a paperweight in shades of grayish, spending my last coin, so someone will tell me it will be okay. And I just, again, the idea of like just wanting someone to tell you that it will be okay. Sometimes that is what we're seeking, and like sometimes we're seeking the reassurance, that we're seeking the assurance that you may be sad right now, but it's going to be okay in the future. So, any thoughts on the bridge, and then we'll transition to the movies.
No, I love that bridge. And I think that I say no and then I'm going to start talking. But I think so many of us have that feeling where they're like, I want somebody to tell me it's okay. they mean like, I mean like, no, I want like the all powerful, all being somebody who can see the future or whatever it is to tell me it's going to be okay. I don't want my friend over wine to tell me it's going to be okay. I don't want my mom to tell me it's okay. I don't want my therapist to. I want to know, like, I want like a confirmed fact. I don't want, like, I know that sure, if this doesn't work out, I could still be okay. But I want it, like, it's like, no, I want it in paper. I want a contract officially with the universe that this is going to be all right. Like, and this is going to work out for me.
So as it pertains to Sidney and Laurie, I think like their version of the prophecy is like this idea that they feel like Sidney Prescott in Scream 3, she feels like her mother's past. She doesn't understand it. She's like, why does this keep following? Why did this happen? Is my family cursed with this, for lack of a better phrase? And I think over the course of Scream 3 is how she kind of unravels the curse and she kind of takes charge. And the curse is lifted in some respect. It stays there because obviously here we are with Scream 7 and the Ghostface is coming after her family. And so there's an element of, I think we can make a solid prediction. I think Sydney is going to feel like, why does this keep happening to me? Why, and I think that not like the obvious, like logical answer. Well, this happens because of 1996. Why was Sidney Prescott chosen to lead such a life of sadness and loss and people trying to kill her and now kill her family? I think that's a question that Sidney wants to ask. And with Laurie and H2O, one thing that I think H2O is fun with that we don't get to see in Scream 3 is Laurie gets to stew and she gets to talk about the idea that her brother is a killer. Versus in Scream 3, Sidney learns her brother is the killer in the finale and there's no time for that reflection. And I think that like Laurie musing on this the whole movie and being unable to open up to her boyfriend, having strict control over her son, all of that relates to her feeling like that she is haunted by this curse of her and her brother, and no matter what happens, he's always going to be there. He's always going to be a looming threat over her life and family, and she wants to just be absolved of that. So Ash, thoughts?
Yeah, I feel like this song is exactly how they must feel, especially for Laurie, like the connection of wanting to protect her child. And like all of this started happening when she was a child. And then now she's like close, like now she's like this second part, like this could be happening to me. Like now my son is the age when things really started ramping up. And it's almost like she's had time to grieve the loss of who her brother was, as who she thought he was, of this person who was a member of her family who I'm sure she loved and cared for. And now it's almost like she's like, okay, bitch, like this is my choice. Like
Yeah.
she literally chooses to be like, okay, everybody, I'm taking control of the situation because y'all don't know what you're in for and y'all are gonna die if I don't. And I don't want to keep reliving this cycle. So I'm gonna do it. I need to do exactly how I imagine Sydney felt. And I love the comparison of like the brother aspect because it is different. Like Sydney's like, wait, what? You're dead? Right? Like it's just like that's you how would you even be like, oh, you're my brother? Like that's like a Maury segment in its own. And then like it would be like an 8-part special of Maury if all of a sudden it was like, and then he tried to kill me. Like, you know what I mean? And also just like learning things that happen to your parents when they were young, like learning about like the hardships they go through is really sad. Like it really like can hurt your heart. And I think that any woman or anybody learning that happened to their mother would be just so like, I don't want to say repulsive towards the mother, but just like you'd feel sick and disgusted and like almost like dirty in yourself for being like I can't believe that horrible thing happened to my mom. And I feel like you would just feel and sad for her and have so much empathy. And like she can't even talk to her about it. She
Yeah.
can't give her a hug and say, Mom, I'm so sorry that happened. And like the blame is being put on that situation. But it's just so heartbreaking. But I love how in both of those stories they take control and they say, okay, again, not in my movie. This isn't what's going to happen anymore. Like I'm going to take control and like you're not going to hurt anybody else around me anymore. Like it's me
Yeah.
and you, and this is how this is going to end.
Well,
Fingers
and
crossed.
it's so funny, like, because you're right. And you could also think about the prophecy. I'm sure Maureen herself felt like the prophecy.
Yes.
You could actually, this could be narration. The entire song could be narrated in Maureen Prescott voice in terms of like Maureen, like once Roman appears to her and she's having these affairs, like, it's just like, what did I do to deserve this? And like, so it's just so interesting. You could go beyond even Sidney and Laurie. And, so going one step further too, I think like the Carrie Tate version of who do I have to speak to about if they can redo the prophecy is her kicking the glass in and taking the axe and heading into Michael because she is going to fix the prophecy. She's like, who do I have to speak to fix this shit? Ash, where can they find you and where can they find our game?
You can find me at SquirrelandSpud9. There you'll find a link to my Etsy shop, all my thoughts, pictures of my cats, and most importantly, the Scream Game of the Week comes out every Wednesday. Ryan and I collab on making some fun puzzles, games, whatever you want to call them, interactive posts for you guys to participate in.
All copyrighted material used or referenced in this show belong to their rightful owners and made possible by the Fair Use Act.
And number 3, never, ever, ever, under any circumstances say, I'll be right back. Because you won't be back. Get another beer, you want one? Yeah, sure. I'll be right back!